This is an ABC podcast.
Before we start today's story, we're very excited to share that tickets for Conversations Live, our national tour, are selling fast. And we've added extra shows in Adelaide, Hobart and Perth. On stage, Richard and I are going to take you behind the scenes of Conversations, give you an insight into how the show is made, how we approach interviews, and a little bit more insight into one another. There'll also be special guests for each show. I think it's going to be a real hoot, and we would love to see you there. There's a link in the show notes, or you can go to the Conversations page for more details. Graeme Stockdale loves the magic of lighting a fire and using that fire to cook food, and then all the togetherness that comes with sharing a meal. Graeme learned the power and the smells of cooking when growing up around his sauerkraut and pickle-mad grandparents in Albany. And a love of bringing people together around food is what led to he and his wife opening the Stockpot Kitchen in Lismore, which has been named the best barbecue restaurant in Australia, no less. Cooking for others has also helped Graeme get through the worst of times, including the 2022 floods in the Northern Rivers, when he and his crew fired up the barbecue and cooked thousands of meals for their devastated community. Later that same year, Graeme's family was rocked by a brutal and senseless crime. And he learned that talking to someone about what's hard can actually be almost as helpful as sitting together around a perfectly fried chicken and smoked brisket. Hi, Graeme.
Hello.
What's the first thing you do when you get to work in the morning?
I open the door, I walk into the kitchen, I get the little pile of firewood out and I light a fire. The sound of the kindling crackling as it starts that little fire up, and because I'm lighting up a big smoker, a big barbecue smoker, that always has some remaining ingrained smell from all the cooks that's performed over the years. So really quickly it smells really delicious as well.
And does it get hot in that kitchen then?
Oh, do not even talk to me about how hot it gets in the kitchen. A couple of summers ago, there was no reprieve at all. It was like late February, it was still humid, we were still up in the mid-30s. And we actually coined the phrase endless summer fatigue syndrome, where we just didn't think it was ever going to end. It was actually starting to hurt not only our bodies, but our brains.
Were you one of those kids who was fascinated by fire?
Yes, I was.
What are some of your memories of that, or the memories of the adults around you who witnessed that fascination?
Well, one of the very first memories I have that's very clear in my life as a young boy was due to my fascination of fire. We had a vacant block near our house which had been cleared, so it had the pile of wood in the middle of it, all the old trees and stuff drying out. And I took the box of matches from beside the stove one day. I think Mum had popped out to the shops, or she'd popped out to the neighbours, and I went next door and, I got on my little kindling and everything, did it all proper from day one, and put a match to it. And before I knew it, that fire was well overhead height. And I rushed back to the house to get the garden hose. But, I may as well just spat on it because it did nothing. Next thing you know, fire department was there, the whole package.
Oh, the whole package?
There was no major damage done, thank goodness. But sure enough, Mum was home pretty soon after that. And the look on her face when I saw it, I knew I was in big trouble.
She must have been so scared when she came home and saw that.
Yep, that angry scared that mums get.
Before it got dangerous, you made this deliberate choice to go and get the matches. What do you remember running through your little head? You just wanted to see what would happen? Or
Yeah, I just wanted to see a fire. Full stop. That was it. It was pretty simple. I'm a simple guy. Always have been.
Your mum was raising you solo. Did she have to be pretty staunch, pretty tough to have 3 boys on her own?
I would say absolutely. She would have gone well crazy well earlier if she didn't, get some rules in there. There was often times where 2 of us would be fighting and it would be quite simply take it out the back. So one of us would legit drag the other one down the passage out the back to continue the fight.
You're the eldest of the three boys. Does that mean you were usually the one winning those fights, or how did it play out?
For a while, pretty soon into teenage years, though, like both my brothers overtook me in size. So, and I mean, I'm not small. So I definitely pulled back a little bit, I think.
Let's talk about it, you'd say. Let's talk about it.
Made the decision that it wasn't going to keep ending in my favour.
Your mum and dad split up when you were only a little kid. Did you see much of your dad after that?
We saw him, a couple of times a year for a couple of years, but then he remarried when I was still quite young, and with his new family, that was his main priority, I guess.
This was in Albany in Western Australia. So growing up, going to school there, were there many other kids like you and your brothers who just had one parent at home?
No, not especially in primary school days. Like it didn't seem like a really common thing. And in primary school, it seemed like that was enough to, in those days, even sort of put you on the fringe a little bit. It was a good enough excuse for primary school age kids to, I guess, pick on you for that.
Your mum's parents were a big part of your life growing up. Tell me about them.
Well, they were German and Polish. Granddad was Polish, Nana was German.
And so what sort of food would they cook at their place with that background?
Oh, look, still a lot of German and Polish things. Even in primary school, I still remember, we'd go to school with like liverwurst and German mustard sandwiches. Like, people would be like, what the actual heck is that, mate? Like, get away from me, you filthy animal.
Did you like the flavour?
Yeah, but I had to, I don't know, in the end you end up pretending you don't like the flavour because you just want to be like everyone else. And, I've read a lot of cookbooks and there's so many of those stories from, first-generation Australians and stuff, their parents sending them to school with things that kids just don't know. It's not a Vegemite sandwich.
Was there a meal that they'd make that you could eat at the safety of your own home that you really revelled in? What was some of the favourite things for you that they'd cook?
Well, I always remember, like, Nana, especially in winter, she'd have this soup pot and she'd always make, like, a cracking pea and ham soup and she'd do a lamb and pearl barley soup. And they're two of the ones that I can still smell them. I can still see the pot like bubbling and spitting thick lava over the stovetop. Sitting at Nana's table with the tablecloth that she'd brought over from Germany. She'd have thick German rye bread with like so much butter on it. It was like almost equal parts bread and butter. And then always Maggi seasoning for some reason. That's another memory I have. Like there would always be Maggi seasoning when we had soup at Nana's, but just deliciousness.
So was that the kind of food your mum would cook for you and your brothers as well?
Oh, she'd definitely cook that sort of stuff. Meat and three veg, I would say, like classic 80s Woman's Day cookery. Maybe get a bit flash with a salad and put quarters of hard-boiled eggs alternating with quarters of tomatoes around the edge, that sort of thing.
What did your mum talk to you about doing after you finished school? Did you have any plans for what that might look like?
Not so much. I didn't have a heap of plans for after school, if I'm totally honest. It took me quite a while to really work out what I was going to do. You
got the chance to visit Singapore, which really helped expand your sense of what food could taste like. How did that happen, Graeme?
A friend from high school, his family was from Singapore. He was an only child. They'd go back every year to visit family. And one year we were joking about it and he was like, man, you should actually come. I'm just hanging out with all the oldies, like, please come. So, yeah, next thing you know, I had a ticket to Singapore.
And what do you remember about the food there, which is such a big part for anyone going to Singapore?
Mate, it absolutely blew my mind. Like, coming from meat and three veg, if Mum made a stir fry, it was like a stew fry, It was in a big old electric frying pan with a jar of Canton for a good 45 minutes. And just first markets in Singapore, the smells, the sounds, just watching people flipping woks, it just blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind.
What are some of the things you ate there that you maybe were completely new for you?
Crisp vegetable stir fries. Just all those Yeah, all those stir-fried things that are, full of flavours still have that little bit of crispness. There was some spiciness, which we didn't have at home. Mum wasn't a big user of, like herbs and spices. We went to the barbecue stall, had all the ducks and the lumps of pork hanging up, and we bought a duck, and the old guy, he got his cleaver out, just deftly chopped this thing up into beautiful pieces, and just I was amazed, and I could have left then, just with
without even tasting
just with the smell and just watching the show. Then it gets wrapped up in newspaper, and then we took that back to the hotel and just sat there on the floor and ate this whole duck in minutes. It was, once you started, there was no stopping. It was amazing.
So did that trip to Singapore change the way you ate once you got back to Albany?
Look, it definitely influenced what I thought I could eat then. I had a little stint as a vegetarian after that.
After the duck?
Yeah. I got quite righteous in my late teens and thought I'd do my thing for the animals and the environment and whatever else. And
so what were you eating during your vegetarian era?
Lots of chickpeas and lentils. Mum was still obviously doing the meat and 3 veg thing. That's when I started actually cooking for myself, and quite often experimenting, not well, but sometimes experimenting with great success and being like, wow, I'm just going to make this about another 100 times this week.
You started working in kitchens pretty young. What was your first job in a kitchen?
It was still primary school.
Primary school?
Yeah. I was at one of the fish and chip shops in town, and I would go down on a Saturday morning, ride my bike down, 7 o'clock, and there I would scrub potatoes and put them through a hand chipper.
So that's where you started. How did you actually start cooking the food?
I mean, it was quite a lot later. It was early 20s, and I'd started cooking a lot more at home. I had a very good friend who was and still is an awesome chef. He's the guy I still call chef to this day. And he would show me how to do a lot of things. It would be a phone call and he'd be like, oh, mate, I've got my lunch break in half an hour. I'll come over. I'll actually run you through it. He sort of nudged me in the direction, if anything. And I started to get quite infatuated with the idea of cooking in a kitchen. And at the pub on a Friday night, I can remember for a good maybe 5, 6, 7 weeks, I would see one of the guys I knew had a cafe in town every Friday night and, half drunkenly be like, come on, man, give me a job. But nothing happened for a few weeks. And then one week, just out of the blue, he rings me. He's like, are you actually serious, mate? Do you want to come and learn how to cook? I was like, yes, I do. So the next day, I started work at Eat Your Heart Out Cafe in Albany and just fell in love. The first few weeks, honestly, all I wanted to do was impress. I just tried super hard, but to the point where I would be trying so hard, I would drop plates, I would knock stuff over, hard and clumsy until maybe a few weeks later, I actually started to get into a groove, and then it was all systems go. He gave me a full-time job, and I think I was there for 3 years. But in the meantime, I got myself another couple of part-time jobs, so all in kitchens. Anyone who would let me work in their kitchen, I'd put my hand up, work for pittance, work hard, try and do it as good as I can, and learn whatever I could off people.
What was it about cooking and food that you'd fallen so in love with, do you think?
Oh, just the magic. So easy to make someone's day with a good meal. When people started coming, poking their head back into kitchens and being like, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. It's just such an enjoyable experience.
You met your wife, Jenny, in WA. How did the two of you end up in Byron?
Maybe a year after we got together in Albany. The head chef I was telling you about earlier, Paul McNish, he was working in Thredbo. He'd said to me a couple of times, you should come over. Come on. Jenny and I spoke about it, once again, half jokingly, and next thing you know, we're like, yeah, no, screw this, let's go. Let's pack up the Pintara station wagon.
And you drove over?
And let's go. Yeah, we did, absolutely. And then after that season, Jenny was originally from Queensland, so a lot of her family were in Brisbane and Toowoomba. So we drove up and stopped in Byron for a couple of days and loved the place, like just the scenery. It was, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, Albany is beautiful, but it just had some more people, I guess, some more things going on.
So you moved your life over to the East Coast.
Yep.
And did you always have the dream of opening your own place, Graeme? Was that part of the plan?
Oh, probably at a lower level it was. We'd have a little passing conversation about it every now and then, like how good it would be and how much fun that would be and how awesome it would be to own our own place. We started catering. We started doing some barbecue catering, and at about the same time, I was head chef at a restaurant out the back of Byron in the hills, and the owners decided they were going to close the restaurant. Jenny had actually done a couple of years as a youth worker just to have a bit of a break from hospitality, and her job became redundant. Like, we found out within weeks of each other that, we were both on the outer.
Did you have kids by that stage?
Yeah, our kids would have been 8 and 9.
It's a big thing to launch a restaurant at that stage, the two of you with young kids. It always seems that people open restaurants, then they get divorced or lose all their money or all of that together.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't seem to have happened to you guys.
No, we just thought we'd give it a punt, you know.
Why barbecue? Out of all the different kinds of foods you would have cooked over the time, different styles, what is it that made you want to do barbecue?
I don't think, I know that because I've always been so infatuated by fire, it was like a foregone conclusion that I would be cooking on fire one day, one way or the other. And it was starting to gain a bit of popularity. And I just remember sitting with the committee, them asking us about what sort of menu we were going to do. And there was a lot of raised eyebrows.
About it being barbecue?
Yeah, barbecue and fried chicken. What, you're not going to do steak and schnitzel? Like, this is not going to go down well. Like, you guys are freaking crazy. But I was pretty staunch about it. I was like, come on, I'll tell you what, let's have a go. If it doesn't work, I'll change it. Like, it will be that simple. But it did the opposite of not working. Like, it just absolutely went off. The community absolutely backed it. And we had people, we were in Bangalore, we had people who'd come from Byron, Ballina.
What's the draw card for people who think of barbecue as like something they do at home with the sausage? What's the draw card of going to a restaurant that's a barbecue restaurant?
If it's a good one and it's put the love and attention into cooking what it's cooked, it's just this, it's beautiful, succulent barbecue. It smells good. It tastes good. There's some primal programming in our heads that tells us like that is delicious. And I truly think it is.
How greasy do people get after eating at your place, Graeme?
Oh, I'm not allowed to go out and watch people eat anymore.
Why? Why?
People get freaked out by a creep sitting at their table watching them eat.
But it's not the sort of restaurant that you can just, you need a napkin after you finish a meal
Absolutely.
at your place,
and
I'm imagining.
I'm a firm believer. You can get these little one-ply napkins at joints like ours, and you're doing a disservice to people if you give them those things. Like, you need those big quilted, it pulls out like half a tablecloth or a pillow cover or something, and give yourself something to wipe yourself down with afterwards.
You don't hose people before they leave?
Haven't yet.
So you had the food happening, people were really into it, and then you built your own place in Lismore, is that right? Yeah, and what did it look like, the first version of the Stockpot Kitchen?
It's a small restaurant in the old art gallery in Lismore, so it's an old building.
So you opened this version of the restaurant, the Stockpot Kitchen, in 2015, and then 2 years later, you and Jenny and your kids went through the first flood in the Northern Rivers, and you lost a good friend in that disaster.
Yeah, no, that was a bit of a horror time for us, actually. That was when we did actually drive over from Albany, we drove over with a couple of other good friends. Like, they drove their car, and one of them, Jatana, she ended up living maybe half an hour up the road from us. And in that first big flood, she tragically lost her life. for us, it was the first really big loss we'd shared, I guess. Like we were reals close as well. Like she's a person like I never stopped thinking about. And she tragically died. And then I just started cooking because there was a few communities that were devastated by that one. So I just started working more, cooking meals for people.
Were you waiting just for the next flood? What did it feel like back in the community after that one in 2017? Did it feel like it was a matter of time till something happened like that again?
I certainly didn't feel like that, but I didn't think about it heaps either. I thought about just what we're gonna do to make what happened here better for other people.
In February 2022, there was another even worse flood, I think the highest flood on record in Lismore at that time. How did you try and safeguard the restaurant? Did you have enough time to know that the water was coming and could impact your place?
Where we are, if the water goes over the levee, we're prone to getting flooded out in the restaurant. Our plan and what people had done previously was to get everything up in the top story, and then once the flood goes, you clean out, you start again sort of thing, which was fine for every other flood right up till 2022.
You moved what you could upstairs.
Yeah, we'd already moved a lot of things upstairs, but when it sort of hit fever pitch and it was like, it's definitely happening, like we have a certain amount of time we can get in and out of town from our place before we're totally cut off from all sides. So we chucked the horse float and the trailer on and we went and grabbed, I guess we went backwards from most expensive things we needed. Well, what we thought we needed the most. So, we had a combi oven. We grabbed the coffee machine because we thought we didn't want to lose that. These sorts of things. And then we got the heck out of Dodge.
And you were back at your place, which is outside of Lismore and up a hill.
Yeah.
What do you remember that night in the rain of that night? What was it like at your place that evening?
It was pretty numb. It was just, well, look, numb's the only word for it, actually. There was no real feeling apart from good chance we're going to be screwed here. And
when you woke up the next morning and looked outside, what could you see from your place?
Well, if I give you the picture of what I can normally see, it's probably like a good few kilometres of paddocks and hills and trees and all that sort of stuff. But that morning I looked out and it was the ocean had come to us in Lismore. It was seriously just water everywhere. There was a few treetops from the taller trees that were poking out of the water, but that was pretty close to it.
How did you first hear about what had happened to your place in town?
Well, overnight, one of the owners of a hotel that's opposite us, before they'd got out to safety, they were still, taking photos and doing a bit of filming and whatnot. And in the morning, one of our friends called us and said, mate, you got to suss the news. And there was our restaurant, water well up over the first story. So, yeah, that was, we're done. The amount of water we looked at, it was something surreal. It wasn't of this life or of this world. It was something you see in a movie. It was something you see on the news. It was just absolutely phenomenal. And we knew it wasn't going anywhere anytime soon either. Like, you can't just... It wasn't someone left the plug in the sink and left the tap on. This was the real McCoy, so it was like we may as well settle in and we'll deal with the rest of it in 2 days or 3 days when we can get into town.
How long until you could drive into Lismore?
I think it was 3 days.
And what did you see as you made you drive in?
It was just horrible. On the drive into town, as we hit town, I think there was a gas bottle in like a fork of a tree, not a 7 kilo gas bottle, like one of the big industrial restaurant ones, It was in the top fork of a tree. It was like 2 stories high, like next to the sports oval. Everywhere you looked, there's a couch on a roof. There's a fridge tangled up in a bloody whatever on a balcony. It was just absolutely phenomenal. It was like really quite disgusting. All the grass, everything was brown from that brown muddy water and all the mud that had come up, and even all the grease traps overflowing, all the septics overflowing, like the smell, it was disgusting. It was rotting meat. It was absolute filth.
And what was the scene at your restaurant?
Pretty much all of that, but just in our restaurant as well.
Oh. And can I ask, was insurance going to help you out with this?
No, not so much. Not when the water got past the levee.
So you're standing there, I guess you and Jenny went into town together.
Yeah.
And you just see the wreck of this place that you'd built up.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Well, we got some stuff out and...
what could you salvage?
Swept a couple of things up. Well, not heaps. But we could salvage the barbecues. The barbecues, that was our saving grace, I guess.
The barbecues?
The barbecues. We started with them. We started cleaning. We had a lot of friends, a lot of people came to help us, and we started cleaning, and then it was like, well, wait up. Everyone in town is doing the same thing, and there's nothing for food, for sustenance, for anything. There's no power. There's no power for kilometres. There's no food for kilometres. There's like absolutely zip. So then we cleaned up our perilla, which is like a charcoal grill, and Jenny went for a drive. I think she had to drive back to Byron and did the round of a few butchers and some woolies and that sort of thing. And she came back with meats and things for us to grill and buns. So I put a little post up on Facebook and said, we're all sort of doing the same thing here. I'm hungry. I imagine you're hungry. We've got a bit of a grill going on here. Like, come by. If you're hungry, please come by. Just eat it. We'll have a hug and a cry, and we can all go back and just dump all our lives again.
And did people respond to that invitation?
Yeah. Like we were out of food within minutes. There was a lot of people there, and that's when we decided we're just going to keep going with it. We're just going to keep cooking. There was nothing else to do.
So you were just set up at the front of your place, or where were you?
Yeah, literally, sort of at the front of the courtyard, like where there was a square of cleanliness, I guess. And yeah, that's where we started. But then in the next couple of days, we got inside cleaned out. We got the big smoker cleaned up. We had like food coming in from all over the place with like barbecue teams, barbecue restaurants, butchers coming from Brisbane, Western Queensland, north of Brisbane, south of Byron Bay. Like in a better time, it would have been a hell of a party. Like our house was full with swags and people sleeping in every room on every bit of floor, and people just cooking cooking barbecues through the night, and we would like serve it up to people the next day, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger. We had a local church group who were going to set up next to us. Compared to what we saw from local government and whatnot, like these guys just had resources out the razoo. Like a generator arrived, fridges arrived. We had fuel coming up from Port Macquarie. We had fuel coming down from the Sunshine Coast. Like these guys were absolutely amazing. And on the ground, organised, boom. We ended up serving, like there were days where we were serving thousands of people. And there wasn't a lot on offer at the start. So like we set up, and then, community groups started setting up with their sausage sizzles. Everyone was doing free food, but everyone else was doing sausage sizzles. And people were getting reels over that real quick. They're like, I understand.
Floods were bad enough.
Yeah.
Don't make me eat another sausage.
I cannot do another sausage. So, I guess that's another part of the reason that, and we just ended up being like a hub. People knew if they needed to eat. We didn't ask anything from anyone. We ended up with so many people looking after us that we didn't need to.
Gosh, it's incredible, Graeme, the way you describe it. Like you were doing this to try to help your community, just instinctively reach out. But was it good for you as well?
I will say that there was definitely a certain amount of self-preservation in that. Like my brain had a bit of a chat with me and it said, like, this is going to keep us busy. So we're going to feed the community, but also this is going to help us.
Yeah, they always say that with disasters, don't they? Like it's that taking action, doing something is kind of the most helpful thing that can happen after a disaster.
It certainly was for us.
How long did this continue, this cooking thousands of meals, giving away food for free? How long could you keep that up?
I'm going to, I think it was 6 or 7 weeks, but then we I guess we hit a time where Jenny and I sat down and we're like, well, pretty soon we've got to start making some money again because this is how we make money. So, after that, we just got full steam into doing what we could do again. And really basic things at the start because we didn't have a full kitchen and we didn't have everything we needed and we didn't have tables and chairs. And
it sounds clear that you and Jenny had really become an important part of that community in the Northern Rivers, which I think is one of the special things about that part of the world. People move there and they can really become embedded in that place and there are really strong connections there. What about your family back in WA? Had they come and seen this new life that you guys were building for yourself? What had happened in your relationship with the people you started life with?
My mum and my brother Matt had definitely been over numerous times.
What did they think about this new place?
Absolutely amazing. They loved it. We had, aunties and uncles and even my nan, while she could still get on a plane, she definitely came over a couple of times and,
Did she give you any tips on sauerkraut when she was over?
No, she was over that. She was over cooking. She was over cooking full stop. I remember I asked her once because when they arrived in Australia, they had a tent camp in a place called Darkin, which is kind of in the middle of nowhere. But she told me they'd get their rations, but the men would go out during the day and they'd hunt rabbits and things like. I was like, oh, Nan, come on, you got to have a good rabbit recipe for me. And she turns to me, and in her she thought she had an Australian accent by this stage, but it was still very not Australian. She was like, I tell you what, Graeme, if I never see another rabbit in my life, I am a happy woman. So needless to say, I didn't get a rabbit recipe.
Fair enough. And what about you going over to WA, especially after you had the boys? Did you make the trip home as well?
Yeah. We did that often. After we first had Seb, who was Dad's parents, that was their first great-grandchild. It was Dad's first grandchild. So that was the first time we actually got to meet Dad as well.
When you had your own son?
Yeah. Granddad had called him and said, listen, you've got a grandson now, let's get back on the program, eh? And, he gave me a call. And on the tail end of that trip, we went over to meet him. That was a pretty cool, emotional little ditty. He met Seb, he met Jan, he cooked us a roast lamb dinner, and, we just had a big old chat that arvo that evening and showed me all his war memorabilia and from when he was in the Navy and just a big old catch-up, really.
What about your mum, Graeme? She would have worked so hard as a single mum, raising you and your two brothers. What was she doing with her life by this stage? Had she retired?
She would have retired a little bit later in the piece. But she worked all her life. She worked hard, and not only to get money, but actually trying to raise 3 mad sons.
What did she do for work?
She'd pack shelves at Woolies and love it as well. She was just, whatever you do, you're going to love it. That's how.
What did she love about it? The people?
The people, absolutely. She loved talking to people. She had a laugh on her, I'm not even lying. When we were kids, I'm not even lying. When we were kids, we would go into Woolies to wait for her to finish or whatever after school, and those sliding doors at the very front of the shop would open, and she'd right down the back, and you could hear her laughing, and you'd just be so embarrassed. You're like, come on, Mum, what are you doing that for? But then, as you get a little older, you're like, that's a hell of a happy laugh. Like, carry on, Mum, as you were.
What was happening with her health as she got older?
So when she did retire, she in the next year or so, she got diagnosed with early onset dementia.
How did she take that news, which is such a horrible, hard thing to hear?
She wasn't stoked, but on the same note, my mum was always about, you just get on with it, you do it, like that's just how life is. So she was always pretty staunch about just don't be too concerned about me.
What did she want to have happen with her in terms of a care? She was living alone.
I mean, she knew she was going to end up in a care home, which she accepted and sort of said to us, it's going to be okay. Like, I'm going to be fine there. Like, I'm going to lose my mind and I'm play with a bit of wool in the corner and have a cup of tea. Like, I'm not going to know about it. You just got to let it happen. Like,
must have been hard for you seeing her change, or how did she change as that dementia took hold?
Yeah, I mean, she also had eye problems as she got older, which I think probably affected her more. But whenever she was with us, and especially her grandkids, she was just, she was so happy. Like, you couldn't do anything to ruin her day. I didn't get to see it like every week, if that makes sense. So there'd be phone calls, and the phone calls got a bit disjointed towards the end. Like, she'd be easily distracted, but still always loved it.
Still laughing?
Oh, absolutely.
When your mum died in 2022, what was your family told had happened?
Well, they thought because she'd just recently had an operation on her leg, and they thought there was a possibility that it had caused a blood clot and had gone to her brain, and she died.
And what did you find out had actually happened?
Well, when that happened, like, I immediately got in the car and drove over. And on Christmas Eve that year, the police came round to my auntie Chris's house to tell her that they'd found out Mum had actually been murdered.
In the aged care home?
Yeah, correct.
By a person who was...
By a nurse, yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, it was... Yeah.
A complete shock, I guess, to
Absolutely.
Your family.
Yeah, we thought it was very strange that it had taken, like, it was taking so long to finalise the details of it. But then speaking to detectives afterwards, they had a suspicion, and then they follow leads, and then all of a sudden they pick someone up and then come visit you and tell you all these things. And
so you already had the grief of losing your mum, and then this must have just been such a shock, just such out of left field to add this to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it was certainly a hollowing experience just to feel like absolutely nothing.
That aged care worker was charged and found guilty of taking your mum's life and is now in jail for 22 years. Such an enormous thing for your whole family to go through. After the year you'd had of 2022, coming at the end of that year, how were you coping as this was going on?
Not real well. Yeah, like as a whole family, I guess normally that's when you have a bit of an issue, maybe that's who you try and lean on. But we were all having an issue with this. Like, it was all shared issues, I guess. So it was really hard for us to look after each other. And my mind was poor, like it was not being the happiest mind it had ever been. So I was drinking a lot more than I normally do. Just trying to not think about things, I guess. But they stayed there.
Were you working at this point? Were you still cooking?
Yeah, absolutely.
All of that?
Yeah. That sort of never stopped. So in the end, well, I spoke to someone, got some help for my head, I guess. Spoke to a professional, certificates on the wall, that sort of thing. Definitely helped. Like being able to, I don't know, one thing I guess I tell people these days who might be having a bit of head trouble is I found it a lot better to be able to speak to someone impartial. I ended up, like I tried doctors like face-to-face, but I don't know, I couldn't find the right one. It wasn't working for me, whatever it is. But I ended up doing like a telehealth type style. And I'd speak to a guy every week and, yeah, he was just great. I guess a really good thing to be able to speak to someone about what was going on in your head or my head and have them, I guess, offer professional advice, not, just try and drink it away.
I bet your wife and your friends, your kids were grateful to you for reaching out in that way too. It can be a big thing for the people who love someone who's been paying to carry.
It was super hard for them just to not have the old Graeme hanging around. But yeah, he got there eventually.
It's all still, when I say end of 2022, that's still really recent. And then you've got a trial that lasts 18 months or whatever.
Yeah.
How are things in that head of yours these days?
Oh, they're a lot better. I'd say it's old. Old Grazza is back. Like, we're cool. I still, not as regularly, speak to the brain doctor and, if I feel like anything, if there might be an anniversary or a birthday and that sort of thing. But, yeah, as a whole, like, mostly pretty good these days. Like, life's pretty good. Life on the farm.
Tell me about your farm that you and Jenny have. What's it look like?
Way too green at the moment. If we could just have a little less rain. One of those ones. We have 50 acres. At the beginning of last year, we got it planted out with 12,000 rainforest trees. So it's turning into quite the little habitat for things.
What sort of animals come to hang out there?
Wallabies. Wallabies are a big one. But definitely more birds and more chirpy noises, all that sort of thing.
Is that a platypus tattoo I see on your arm?
It is. Yeah, we do have a platypus or two in the creek. I've definitely seen one. And then we have, we have sheep and we have chooks and we have dogs and a cat and horses and all those sorts of things.
Sounds like a real refuge, I have to say.
Like, we have a river running through our property where I can just go down there, sit on the riverbed and fish for bass and, like, a lot of the time just stare at the water running by. Actually, it's quite therapeutic.
I'm sure your mum would be happy to think of you sitting in that spot.
She would be very happy, absolutely. That's something that Mum always got happy from our happy. She did that really well.
And how's the restaurant doing these days? Yeah,
the restaurant thrives these days. As you said earlier, last year we won the Barbecue Restaurant of the Year, which that's a pretty biggie.
What was it like to get that news?
Dear good Lord, I couldn't even stand up for probably like half a minute. I remember going up to the stage thinking I just about wear my pants like that. It's because you're up against some really good restaurants, like people who know how to cook really good barbecues. So, it was just absolutely amazing for our little restaurant in Lismore to take that one.
And your boys are working with you now too, hey?
Yes, they are. Yep. After I mean, because they've been in the kitchen since they could walk, you know, whether it was peeling prawns or chopping vegetables or washing dishes. And I guess early teens, they both decided that's enough kitchen for me, thank you very much. And then post-flood, like post the big flood, we were probably closed all up for maybe 2.5 months, and people had to go out and get other jobs, pay their bills, etc., etc. So we came back with, I think, 2 of our old staff.
From how many? From
16 or 17. So that was pretty hard. So it was all hands on deck. Both the boys jumped into the kitchen with me, and both decided they were pretty keen on it.
And how do you like working with them?
It's honestly, like, they both do so well in the kitchen. And I'm not taking away anything from anyone else I work with, but it's super proud dad stuff, you know.
And what about your community of Lismore that, you know, you arrived at 20 years or so ago and have seen it take these really hard knocks? How's it doing these days, do you think?
People of Lismore do have a let's just get on and carry on sort of attitude. So I guess it's like being in a cyclone zone or, you know, any other natural disaster. You know there's a chance it'll happen. And sometimes I guess that's the cost of living in paradise. So, when I say everyone, most people just crack on. Like, I mean, everyone gets a little hurt in the head. But at the end of the day, what can you do about it?
How do you see what you do with cooking, with barbecuing, with having the restaurant? How does that help where you live? What's it bring to that place?
Just sitting down with someone and sharing a meal is, if it's a nice meal, it's a nice time. You know, like just simple little things.
What about, are you good at being cooked for, or are you the one who always likes to do the cooking?
I'd like to say I'm good at being cooked for. I think I am. I don't know, Jenny and the boys might say it differently, but
do you give feedback, Graeme, on the meal that's put before you, or you just accept it gratefully?
I accept it gratefully, yes. Unless people are super like, maybe I do give feedback if I'm asked. Maybe I should just learn to shut up.
And does fire still hold the magic appeal it had for you when you were 9 years old?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I never miss a chance to light a good fire. You know, I'll go home after work and still cook on a fire outside if it's not terrible weather. I'm all about it. It's still, the smell, the flavour, the sight, everything about it, I love.
I like to think of you on your hill with your fire burning, cooking bits of meat for the people you love.
It's a good spot for it.
It's been a real pleasure to meet you, Graeme. Thank you so much for being my guest on Conversations.
Oh, absolutely my pleasure. Thank you.
Graeme Stockdale was my guest on Conversations today. Graeme's cookbook is called Red Hot and Smoking, and the Stockpot Kitchen in Lismore was named Best Barbecue Restaurant in Australia 2024. This story was produced by Alice Moldovan and recorded on the lands of the Turrbal and Yagara peoples. I'm Sarah Konoski. Thanks for listening.